Well, Deb Murphy filed this report for Sierra Wave Media. The most interesting element of last Thursday afternoon's Los Angeles-Inyo County Standing Committee meeting was what wasn't on the agenda, the Owens River Trail. The project has been funded to the tune of $500,000 through a California River Parkway grant from the Department of Natural Resources, but is stuck with no site agreement between the county and the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. Without that site agreement, no funds will be released. Now, at the tech group meeting earlier this month, County Water Department Director Bob Harrington asked that it be included on the agenda as a discussion item. Now, while the item didn't make the agenda, representatives from the LA River Expedition spoke during the public comment portion of the standing committee meeting, asking for the department's support. The organization has provided both support and volunteers on what it sees as the LA River's sister river since 2013. Los Angeles needs to be connected, said co-founder Joel Shapiro. We passionately hope for your support. Now, Randy Short with Wounded Warriors and a member of the Boating and Waterways Commission addressed the committee from LADWP's Bishop office, where the meeting was televised. Now, once the 6-mile stretch of River Trail starting at Narrow Gauge Road is completed, the commission will provide a handicapped accessible ramp. You need to be informed, said Standing Committee member Mike Prather. We need the help of LADWP staff to move this forward. Also, a committee action with runoff estimated at 71% of normal and Mono Lake levels edging toward the cutoff point, precluding any export of water to Los Angeles. The committee agreed to start planning and discussions as early as the proposed February 2nd date for the next committee meeting, just days after the first snow surveys. Now, the Joint Vegetation Monitoring Protocol recommended as part of the Black Rock 94 settlement is nearly complete and ready for the Green Book. LADWP Chief Operating Officer Marty Adams suggested a committee field trip at a monitoring site in the spring and or summer of 2017. This is not how we should operate. We shouldn't have to litigate to get here, said Supervisor Matt Kingsley. This in reference to the prolonged Black Rock 94 arbitration process. Now, there was mixed reaction to the field trip proposal, separating the true water nerds, Deb Murphy notes, from the rest of the population. The committee agreed that no water will go to the McNally Pond and Pasture Mitigation Project. Aqueduct manager Jim Yanata said city and county staff are talking about optional uses for the water allocations. Prather stressed alternatives should meet the same goals of North Valley waterfowl habitat and forage. In reference to the LADWP Commission decision to remove commercial leases from consideration at last Tuesday's meeting and waiving an administrative fee from Inyo County ranch leases, Supervisor Rick Pucci thanked the city representatives. We need to be more communicative, Pucci said, not just about water, but also about leases. We're tied economically. And LADWP issued a press release noting that the City of Los Angeles Board of Water and Power Commissioners authorized the renewal of rental agreements containing new provisions for nearly 50 ranch leases in Inyo County. This during the meeting on October 25th. The approval marks an end to years of uncertainty for many leaseholders whose ranch leases had expired. Now, the press release says the new policies correct inconsistent practices between the handling of ranch leases in Inyo County and brings them into the compliance of the Los Angeles City Charter, LADWP leasing rules, and state law, the Charles Brown Act. The ranch leases include 2 new transfer provisions. The first is a one-time assignment policy allowing current lessees to sell or transfer the lease one time before the lease would be offered through a competitive bidding process. And the second is that family transfer policy allowing leases to transfer between designated family members without being subject to competitive bidding. Both transfer options require approval from LADWP before they can be fully executed. Press release goes on to say, in addition to these new policies, the ranch leases are now also subject to a dry finding processing fee to cover a portion of direct LADWP labor costs needed to evaluate a dry finding request. Now, a dry finding determination is made when irrigation allotments were not sufficient for normal ranching operations and can result in a rent credit issued by LADWP. There is also an increase of housing rent to be consistent with housing rent in all other leases LADWP has in the Owens Valley. Now, the press release, and we had a lot of this information in the story by Deb Murphy, says that an additional fee which was proposed initially, the administrative fee, was removed from the final item approved by the board as a sign of cooperation and corroboration with Inyo County ranching community. Ranch lease modifications have been years in the making, and following multiple meetings with the local ranching community, LADWP took the community's concerns into account and drafted the new policy for consideration by the board. The item passed unanimously after the board opted to defer consideration of those commercial leases and remove the proposed administrative fee. Now, the press release says in the coming weeks, LADWP plans to involve the approximately 150 local businesses who hold commercial leases with LADWP to partake in a similar process toward clarifying lease language and unifying lease procedures in the city of Los Angeles and Inyo County. If you have any questions about your lease agreement with LADWP, you can contact Real Estate Section Leasing Group for consideration. Phone number is 760-873-0370. And Deb Murphy filed a report from last week's Inyo County Board of Supervisors meeting, noting that town of Mammoth Lakes dealt with short-term rentals with Measure Z last year, maintaining a status quo where zoning determined where homes could be rented out to tourists. Now the issue has popped up in Inyo County as a result of complaints, particularly in Aspendale, of short-term renters mucking up the community ether. Now, Planning Department's Catherine Richards gave the supervisors some options at last week's meeting, making existing codes not allowing rentals for less than 30 days more clear, allowing short-term rentals as a conditional use permit, allow room rentals in occupied homes, and restrict in R1 zones or rezone to allow. Now, realtors Jennifer Castaneda and Andrea Kramer both urged the board to consider measures that would allow short-term rentals. There is a need, Castaneda said. Yes, there are issues, but existing ordinances take care of those. Collection of transient occupancy taxes is an issue. One of the biggest online rental sites, Airbnb, is said to collect the tax and forward to counties, but only after being sued. Mammoth ran into those issues earlier this summer. Urge you to see our website, sierrawave.net, for Deb Murphy's full story. Well, after more than a week of searching for hiker Robert Bob Woody, the mission has been put on hold due to a series of winter storms that were forecasted last week and did occur. Now, the press release notes all search teams were taken out of the field last Wednesday afternoon. The suspension of an active field search moves the operation into what is called limited continuous, which may include air searches, backcountry patrols, and outreach to hikers headed into the area. The operation will be upgraded to an active search if any leads about the whereabouts of Mr. Woody are discovered. Additionally, the incident management team continues to evaluate data collected by field teams while investigators continue to follow up on the leads. The itinerary for Bob Woody, 74-year-old resident of Manhattan Beach, was a 4-day backpacking and fishing trip between Thursday, October 13th and Sunday, October 16th. Press release notes an experienced hiker who knew the area. Woody parked his vehicle at the South Lake Trailhead, Inyo National Forest, and hiked over Bishop Pass into Kings Canyon National Park. An OK check-in message was sent from his satellite GPS device that Saturday evening from the Barrett Lakes area. Winter storm that night and next day brought very high winds, overnight temperatures to below freezing, and snow to some areas above 10,500 feet. When Mr. Woody did not return from his trip, his family notified authorities. Now, the National Park Service continues to ask the public to contact officials, and that phone number is 559-565-3195 if they were in the search area between October 13th and October 20th. Over 130 personnel have worked on this multi-agency operation within Kings Canyon National Park. And again, that full press release is posted on sierrawave.net. We'll be back with more news.